It's no such animal with pneuma.
Hello, and welcome to No Such Animal. My name is Ryan, and in this first installment episode, we have Funk Devoid. Lars is a friend of mine, and I hope over this conversation you get to learn more about him, his creative process, and what he has to come. Okie dokie. So we're going to start off. This is an interesting thing. This actually doesn't have to do directly. We're talking about off camera or off the mic. It was I recently looked up the Wikipedia page for the definition of tech house, and
Right.
you were in the definition.
Yes. Yeah, I'm one of the purveyors or whatever of the sound. There's me and a few others, like British artists, that kind of pioneered that sound in the 90s, kind of having in that grey area between house and techno, not too tough, but still a bit melodic. Obviously, it's a far cry from modern commercial tech house, which seems to have taken over the globe the last few years. Ours is more of a kind of gritty, underground, urban sound. Mixture of kind of like, our favorite kind of house sounds, melodies, bass lines with a tougher, kind of more kind of techno beat. So softer in its approach, but still has that kind of like, that street feel and that kind of underground feel from the 90s when people were still experimenting with the genres. And it just, that was where I was most comfortable. I think it was with the emergence of Soma Records. They were a huge label, independent label, still are. But then we were kind of leading the charge, alongside like Terry Francis, Mr. C, Nathan Coles, Evil Eddie Richards. These kind of people, I think they're in the definition as well. So I've been told. So it's just nice to be involved. Nice to have recognition of being one of the originators of the sound. So props to that. But I have to thank Detroit Techno for I think for my emergence as a producer. That was probably my calling, was listening to all the early Detroit techno, which once again married kind of harder beats with more with a melodic underpinning. So that's where I'm at, really, a mixture of tech house and Detroit techno, I guess. And then later on, kind of dipping my toes into the kind of more deeper realms of house, but still having that thread of melodic, kind of like gut wrenching, visceral, kind of emotive core to the music. If it doesn't have soul, for me, I'm not really interested, or it doesn't really last long in my memory. I have to have that feeling, that musical memory stamp of certain notes being played together or certain kind of phrases. That's been my thing. Call it like a kind of euphoric hook or whatever, something that music does very well, certain music. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's actually when I think of your sound, I'm like, it's kind of the perfect marriage between progressive house and Detroit techno. You have the percussiveness of playing like a drum machine live. It almost sounds like always like it's a jam. And I was even thinking with like the Diablo original mix versus like the Heavenly mix. Like the original mix is just like you're like Jeff Mills jamming it all out. It almost sounds like to me. I don't know if that was how you made that track.
Well, listen, Diablo has more from this. Diablo was originally. There's a funny story behind this. It was originally a rejected remix for Steve Stoll. So Diablo was a remix I'd done for Steve Stoll that he didn't like because I didn't put any original parts into it. So I just renamed it Diablo, and then that went on the album. And then I just done the Kevin Saunderson E-Dance for Banjo remix. And I like the elements of that, and I like the bass elements of Diablo. So I decided to reimagine Diablo and that kind of E-Dancer Detroit setting. And I was definitely head over heels over a certain lady at the time, and I wanted to impress her. And that was really the impetus for the Diablo Heavenly remix, was me writing a track for this unattainable kind of like, it's like the muse theory. I'm a very big fan of having inspiration. It can be anything from going for a walk or, maybe kind of like Unrequited Love is a good one as well. It's basically I need to write for something. If I want to write something or a piece of art that has meaning, when you're pining for something or someone, that usually creates the best art. I think you find that with a lot of art over the centuries. It's kind of like, yeah, just impressing a girl. That was a Diablo Heavenly Mix, and I did spend about 3 weeks on it. Um, but I knew it was sounding big when I was writing it, and even though I did have friends and flatmates. I was checking in on them to see if I was on the right track, and everyone whose opinion I trusted were telling me I was on the right track. But it wasn't written in a day. It was a long kind of process of maybe 3 to 4 weeks of fine tuning. But yes, it's funny the original idea just more from that kind of declined remix. It's crazy how ideas happen, and the inspiration, like twofold. One from E Dancer, the remix they did for E Dancer, Kevin Saunderson, the banjo remix, and the fact that this girl I was into at the time, she said she loved that remix. So I was like, let's put the two of these together, and then voila, you have that track.
That's crazy because it's of course your biggest track, and it's funny. I always because Kevin Saunderson ended up remixing that track after you remixed him as well.
Yep, funny, huh? I love how it all comes together.
What were you like?
Nice.
Were you running like hardware only at that time?
Yeah, it was all hardware. It was all Atari 1040 ST computer that was holding everything together. Onboard desk, like a 32 channel mixer. I was using an EFX 500 Pioneer, just like routing my pads through that. Using a vocoder through a microKORG, a Korg microKORG. I was putting Apex Twins beats through a vocoder to give that kind of weird vocoder effect. 909, 808, 707s. What else was I using? Yeah, the main chord pad is a sample from an old rave record, which was actually done not around the same time, but a drum and bass outfit called Comics, COMMIX. They used the same sample from this old rave record. I think the track I sampled was Pink Champagne by Rhythm Eternity. It was a white label and it had this intro pads thing. And I just was like, wow, that chord progression sounds insane. So I built the whole track around that chord progression. And then, yeah, a funny thing you're talking about this track now, where this has been licensed to a really big label called Armada Music, and they're re-releasing it this year. I mean, it's a huge package, and some big names are going to be remixing it. So happy to see it spread its wings again this year. Even though we did have a re-release around 2011, but it's been a while since the last versions came out. So I'll be interested to hear what the new producers are going to take to bring to the table. I can't give the names yet but they're very big names. So this Armada Music label are a big kind of music company, and they've actually re-released, or in the process of re-releasing, another Soma classic, Silicon Souls, Right On, Right On. So yeah, this is kind of cool hearing these old Soma classics coming out again. Hopefully, getting a whole new audience of ears, for the next generation.
Yeah, man. It was interesting. Comics is actually one of my favorite like drum and bass artists. That one of the guys from that just came out with a new project.
Nice.
That was
Check out the album Metalheads, then you'll recognize my Diablo pads.
interesting. Okay. Yeah, were you using somebody else's studio to have all that hardware?
No, it was my own studio. I used to have a huge studio that was done when I first moved here in 1999. My studio was moved from Glasgow, and then I moved into a bigger studio in the mid 2000s, and then I shared that studio with Groove Armada, who were living in Barcelona at the time, and we did a few collaborations. We did some gigs together and remixed each other. But yeah, mostly hardware, all rolling gear. Like I had the full museum in my studio. I was a big fan of the Nord series as well. But yeah, I was even. I mean, my favorite synths like from back then were kind of like. I mean, the Novation V Station was great for bass lines. All the Nord had the Nord Studio, the Nord Lead 1, 2, and 3. Roland JV2080 fully maxed out with, and then a Roland JD800, Juno 106, Juno 60, Waldorf microwave, sequential circuits Pro One. It's funny I can remember all these keyboards. There were so many of them. But yeah, at the end, the drum machines were great. My favorite drum machine of all time is the Roland TR-808, which I had for like 25 years until I sold it about 5 years ago. Which I kind of regret selling it, but there's this other company that recreates some of the original parts that they're very, very cool. I can't remember the name of the company, but yeah, you can. There's a company that actually deals with refurbishing original 808s and 909s, so they have all the original parts. So they made their own company. I think they're called DinSync. They make 909s from scratch with all original parts. So you basically have a brand new 909 or a brand new TR-808, and they're like 3,000. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Roland. I've been since I was younger. And it's kind of cool that I ended up working with Roland Japan on some presets for the Roland Cloud VSTs. Because my favorite keyboard probably of all time is the Roland JD800, which I call the king of the strings. It's just the best for pads. Even though it's a ROM-based kind of like digital synth, it still has this weird kind of like warmth to it, which is reminiscent of old analog synths. But you can't go wrong with Roland, in my opinion. And I do think that the Cloud is a very good representation of what these synths used to do. So yeah, I'm a big Roland fan. But right now I have a very compact setup. I kept some bits of gear, like the Roland stuff. But mostly, how do you say it, in the box? Most of my stuff's in the box now, so the plugins are so great these days.
Yeah, digital's interesting, and I've come up with this concept that like technically everything is electronic music because everything's played through an amplified speaker, and
Yeah,
technically everything is analog because it goes through a digital analog converter. So like, especially
everything is analog. I like that.
yeah, I mean, if we're following the same circuitry and they're just emulating it and it's eventually going to come through the driver on a speaker. Like it's becoming an analog. It's analog by the time you hear it.
Yeah, you want to hear the electricity. I mean, ones and zeros aren't so attractive as an electric current being played, right? So I guess, yeah. But whatever sounds good. I've been fooled by digital VSTs before, and like, wow, that sounds like a really good setup, analog setup, and it's like, it's whatever you use basically. But I'm a fan of the old gear. I mean, I do find these new Behringer products, they stay in tune more. Like specifically the Pro One they released is actually way easier to use than the original Pro One that I had for many years. Not to say that I'm not dissing Behringer, but I think it's a great entry. If you want to try these old synths, and then having the kind of basic build for people on a smaller budget that can't afford the actual machines. But it's way more fun twiddling these knobs and doing live things with these actual machines than it is just grabbing a mouse and going left and right on these kind of digital fader things. But yeah, I'm just, as long as I get the right sound, I don't care what I use. I have enough tools at my disposal, and I think everyone else does as well.
Yeah. When you're producing, how often do you, or did you even, or do you still just jam out the track? I've heard, you've talked about this on your streams and other situations. You're like, you said you could tell when somebody jammed it out and when someone's like going in surgically.
Yeah, I have a lot of jammers in my community. We have all sorts in my community, so a lot of jammers that prefer just to kind of like record the live kind of process, and you can hear with the joins and mainly with the arrangements. I guess they can be quite vibey and free form. Also a bit erratic and a bit kind of like jagged in certain parts, but I do like that kind of approach in a certain aspect. But I'm quite more methodical and technical when it comes to arranging. I like getting the old white coat on and glasses on and just really going under the hood. But it is fun. I've recorded tracks and remixes actually live, and I've played live on some of my earlier tracks because I didn't have MIDI for some analog machines, so I had to like practice solos a few times and record it live onto DAT while the track was being recorded into the DAT machine. Luckily, I got a good few takes. But no, I think jamming is a good process of starting a track. I always start a track just playing keys. I usually start with a Fender Rhodes plugin or a ARP Selena sound. I like hearing chord progressions. That's what gets my juices flowing. All the beats usually come later, and the last thing I add to the track is a kick drum, because the kick really needs to kind of anchor the whole track, and it's quite easy to choose the wrong sound in the beginning of the track. But usually you can adjust as the track progresses. But I think I'm most comfortable starting tracks by making some kind of melodic phrase. And that's how I get my juices flowing. But the main hurdle I have is switching the machines on. I'm very easily distracted. More recently, though, with ADHD, being diagnosed with ADHD, it's hard to kind of focus on one thing without easily jumping onto something else. And especially if I've been doing music for like over 30 years. So to try and get that fresh kind of like fire in the belly feeling again, it's very hard to kind of pinpoint that. But you have to kind of mix that with like other options or other kind of like things to do. Like if I feel like I'm struggling to get inspiration or struggling to even start a track, I usually go for a walk. I just usually go for a walk, come back to the studio, I switch all the machines on and make sure everything's ready for me to accidentally start playing. So usually I'm accidentally just writing music. I'm not going into it like a job. I've never treated like this process as a job. I always think you have to be in the sandbox when you're writing or creating music. You have to be in that playful mindset, and then you get that kind of feeling of, I think they call it in the pocket, when you find something that you latch onto, or some certain phrase or some combination of sounds that work really well, and then you're like, fuck, this is great, I need to keep going with this. But yeah, for me, the biggest hurdle is starting. It used to be finishing, now it's starting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I always feel like finishing is the most difficult thing, because everyone either you add too much and you need to remove, which is
I
something
have a
that
lot of clients that have trouble finishing. They have a lot of easy starts. They like doing loops or little sketches, like 2-minute sketches, which I guess is like a Spotify song right now, 2 minutes. But these days, yeah, it's just depending. I mean, I think arrangement is the kind of hardest thing for a lot of people. For me, it really is the easiest thing, arranging music, because once again, it's hard to start the arrangement, but it's easy to get the arrangement done when you start doing the arrangement. And the funny thing is, it's the easiest, shortest process I find in the journey of writing a track. Once you get into the vibe of arranging, it starts to come naturally. And a lot of my clients need that guidance from me when it comes to doing. I always see myself as a composer, arranger, and a lot of people struggle with that, and I find that the easiest to guide a lot of my students and clients on how to finish tracks. I think that might have something to do with being in front of crowds, of being a people watcher and human behavioralist for the last 30 years, knowing what works, when something should happen, when something should stop, and how long something should go on for, musically anyway. And I think I've trained my ear a lot as well, to hear, I call it like meowing cats, a lot of hidden notes in music that don't work, or that kind of are hiding underneath certain chords. But for me, I can kind of drag them out and get rid of them. But more recently, I've been finding that subtracting a lot of sounds is the main task for making people's tracks sound better. I know we're kind of morphing into what I'm doing now. I'm more of an educator now, which is great. That's what I've been doing for the last 6 years, as well as producing and remixing and still DJing. But I definitely get the same buzz I did playing in front of like 10,000 people as I do as showing someone how to finish a track. Similar kind of buzz for me now.
yeah, that's I mean, well, I feel like out of a music scene who it's like based off of ego, you're one of the only characters I can tap a shoulder on and say he has none.
Yeah. I don't like ego people or narcissism is one of the biggest diseases of the planet. Unfortunately, you see it seep into every walk of life, politics especially, and social media. It's just, yeah, it's just people thinking there's something they're not, or wanting to be better than other people. This is a recipe for disaster. Supremacism, I think, is the word I'm looking for. People who think they're better than other people. We're all, all on this planet together. No one's getting out alive, and it's kind of like, it's just, yeah, it's just a lot of shit going on right now that's kind of affects my artistic flow. I'm a very empathic kind of person, so that's another thing that affects my inspiration is other events that happen that kind of not in my direct universe, but on a global scale. I'm affected a lot by all this stuff. So sometimes you just have to mute the noise, and but it's been a bit more difficult these days to do that. I think, yeah, the artistic struggle is kind of necessary in some aspects. I think I write better music if I don't write good music if I'm super happy or, I think the best time I write music is when I need as a tonic or kind of cathartic, escape. I think music is the best tonic for that, to escape out of like certain, situations or like things that affect your well-being mentally as well. I think it's a great solution for being in a bad space. And the studio, the way I have my studio is just like when I walk in, I'm like, oh, I'm home. I'm in this place. I think the studio space, keeping it neat and keeping it, inviting, comfortable, open, having a window in your studio is very important. I think in my aspect as well. So yeah, I'm just like I run to the studio every day, but I'm not. I'm doing everything here. Like I'm teaching. I'm doing 3 streams a week. Helping with software development, sound design, and watching movies, playing video games. I guess I'm one of those guys that sits in front of a screen all day. But I definitely I kind of like marry that with my outdoor activities as well. I live in Barcelona, so I have a lot of options. I can go for a walk on the beach. I can sit and wait for a bus with a palm tree, look at a palm tree for like 10 minutes. I can, yeah, it's just, there's so much to do. And I've got to get out of the city as well. I definitely think you need some kind of routine. You can't just be sitting in front of the screen all day and expecting to write masterpieces. You just have to write when the inspiration happens, So I've had so many sabbaticals, some for like 6 days, some for 6 months. I don't really force it and I don't treat it like a job, even though it kind of is a part of my job doing this. Uh, but I equally run to work as far as running to a class or listening to someone else's track is it's not work for me. It's just like breathing, and I love it. I don't feel scared when I go to press that button on my Twitch stream or whatever. I know a lot of people have this fear. I used to have that fear, but you have to get used to it when it comes to like doing this kind of performance thing. I mean, I think a lot of artists are quite shy. I'm actually a pretty shy person. I have a social battery that runs out pretty quickly if I'm in a big social situation. Um, but it's like, yeah, it's just there's still whatever works for you. And I have a special system that works for me. But I have to say, after all this time, it is, uh, yeah, it is a bit of a trek to try to get to write music. It's becoming a bit more difficult than it used to be, unfortunately.
Do you think part of that's just because like everything in our realm has been over saturated with, I mean, I hate, especially house and techno. I mean, there's so many producers, DJs. You go on YouTube, it's like these gear guys are just making, these house
It's
tracks.
like how to do these riffs, how to do these 90s riffs. I think there was like we had that cultural revolution, musical youth revolution thing in the 80s, 90s. And I don't think, there was this kind of 30-year cycle. We didn't really have anything that revolutionary. So I'm not hearing anything that's really breaking any barriers. A lot of people like to play it safe, unfortunately. I'm always pushing my students to break rules, learn the rules and then break them. And then, you know, uh, don't be afraid to kind of like experiment. A lot of people just play it fucking safe these days. and trying to emulate other people and other producers, which I think is just wrong. I think comparison is the thief of joy and also the thief of fucking creativity as well. I see it with a lot of my younger friends or producers that are trying to make it, and they get so caught up in the whole circus, of visibility. These things don't mean anything to me. I'm not looking for anyone's validation. I don't give a shit what anyone thinks about my music or myself. I don't give a shit about anyone's opinion about my music. And it's like, yeah, that gives me the freedom to do what I want. So when people say, what do you do when you go into the studio? I just don't know. Do you go in with a certain idea or a track? I don't at all. Unless I'm being paid for a remix and I know they want a particular style, I just like the freedom of just, you can do anything you want in the studio. It's great. And there's so much more I've still to learn. I'm still learning. I still think my kicks are shit. 30 years later, I still think I could be my dynamics could do better. I'm still learning. There's so much to learn, but I still have that little kind of childlike joy when I get a new plug-in or a new synth. I mean, it's just, I still have that kind of like innocence when it comes to music. But I don't really give a shit about, external factors or trends, stuff like this. And people say like, oh man, your stuff sounds so retro. I'm like, no, I don't even know what that means. I just do the music I do. It's just, that's the way it is. I don't, but I think that goes to the ego thing as well. Maybe having a healthy ego battle might be good in some certain aspects. But I've seen a lot of people with really harsh narcissistic disorders, uh, and they're not very nice to be around. And I see a lot of that stuff online as well. Disease of this generation, I think, and the last generation too. But luckily, I've managed to avoid that. I'm not sure I'll be going to the States anytime soon. I don't know when I could go back. My heart's in Asia right now. I fall in love with Southeast Asia. I was spent the summer in Vietnam last year. I had the best time. I love Asian people, culture, the differences in food in every country. The attitude, the weather is just. I like that tropical vibe. I like that kind of rawness in the street and that kind of like openness of the local people in certain countries. And the food, dude, it's like, damn, I could just eat that food. Well, I do. I did eat that food all day. So I'm totally in love with Asia and working my way back to Asia for April. So I'll be over. I'll be in Thailand, Vietnam. Where am I going? Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia. Where the hell else am I going? Everywhere. I just want to go everywhere. I love it all. I just love it. So I did leave my heart in Asia. But America, I've seen great times in America. I think I was in there in the golden age of the States, late 90s, early 2000s. I think I told you before, I used to stay in New York when it was like Sesame Street. And yeah, lots of lovely memories of playing in the States, and but never been to Albuquerque or the Deep South. I always want to check out the food in the Deep South, but never been. Always been in these kind of cities like, East Coast, West Coast. I was talking about this with some friends of mine. I remember playing in Chicago one summer in 1999. And me and the Soma crew just like, yeah, let's go to the movies. Okay. And then we went to see three movies back to back. It was American Beauty, The Matrix, and The Sixth Sense. I was like, damn. And I didn't know anything about these movies. And we just walked out of the cinema like, I think we just may have watched the peak of cinema. And it was right. We were like, that was in one afternoon. And so I do these mind-blowing films. And it's like, and then you go for some deep dish pizza. And it's like, life was amazing. It really was amazing. So those are the kind of times in your lives where you're like, it passes by, but you don't realize until you reflect on them later on. Hopefully, I'll come back to America at some point. But it sounds like you got a lot of shit going on at the moment. I wouldn't be too comfortable jumping over there right now. Yeah, I have got my eye in Asia, but my kids are here. I love hanging out in Europe. I mean, it's nice. Everything's an hour flight away, an hour and a half. And Spain's still affordable to live. I have some good flatmates, and my son's living here with me. I'm kind of happier. So I've got my little bubble studio, which I was talking about before. So as long as I have a place to write music and create and then talk to my students, I'm fine.
That's awesome, man. And also, I'm getting inspiration from a lot of ravers, and we have these elusive characters with their black V-necks, and it's like family, food, these things
Yeah,
that they don't ever want to talk about, like, oh, they're human
it's like
beings.
food, shelter, yeah, and water. That's the kind of three basic things we need.
I'm not, no,
When you realize, yeah.
well, I was even just saying, like, everyone's always trying to talk about going back to the ego thing. Like, everyone's like, oh, I'm this, like, elusive character that's like a social media influencer of some sort. And they, like, don't talk about, like, family or, like, friends or, like,
Oh,
anything, like, in
yeah.
real life that are
Yeah,
all.
nothing to do with real life whatsoever. The social media isn't real life anyway. Well, I've been kind of observing from a distance, but now I'm kind of getting my toes wet in the kind of like observation pool, with watching some of these, whatever the current scene, the current culture we're in, which is kind of like a pastiche. It's just become this hyper commercialized pastiche of the grain of what it used to be like, and it's kind of mad to watch how far from the music it's gone, and to more into the spectacle and the attention economy, which I've always had trouble with, this whole kind of attention thing. I just don't know if it's. We all remember after COVID, we all thought it was going to pass and reset, and we're going to go back to the old ways. It kind of doubled down and got worse.
No, I totally agree. I watched a Marco Bailey interview with his interviewer talking about this same problem, and Marco Bailey's like, I'm just done with everything pretty much, and I'm just gonna throw parties in my backyard and have people come
That's
there.
it. Listen, I have a party here once a month. It's awesome. No phones. Everyone's eyes are closed on the dance floor. All ages, all race, color, creed, fucking background. It's just my little church. It's like 100 people and that actually fills my soul. I mean, I'm lucky to have that, because it's very easy to distance yourself or get cut off unless you have that kind of social outlet. I do think it's important to go out there and socialize and speak to each other, and don't spend too much time online. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Going out there and just talking to people, hanging out in the real world, stay off the feed. Just disconnect. I definitely think that's a great idea, man, for all of us, for all our sake, because there are some nefarious forces vying for our attention, and yeah, it's not looking good. But yeah, at least we have music, man. Music is the best friend. It is always there, and yeah, as a job, I can definitely tell you I'm feeling really, really comfortable right now with this new chapter in my career. We're launching this new platform called Suru, which is like a SURU. It's an artist development platform, which really puts everyone with the right teacher, the right mentor, whatever skills you need. There's someone there for you to help you out. Kind of like a skill tree apparatus to the site, and fully lossless quality audio. I mean, how shit is SoundCloud? We've been dealing with SoundCloud for God knows how many years, and it's like we need an alternative to this. I'm not just saying it's just an alternative to SoundCloud, but it's just a breath of fresh air, and it's run by artists who actually care about the future artists as well. So there's little things like that keep me going, and little sparks of hope. And then, sometimes you write a great track in the studio. That's another thing. I think completing a track is a great feeling. There's a huge dopamine rush to be received after finishing tracks. So yeah, that's my thing.
Do you have any more releases coming up soon?
Oh, yeah, I've got quite a lot. My next single's out in 2 days on Rhythm Cult. It's a collaboration with Alex Clavico. We're going for that old school tech house sound with a bit more modern production techniques, a bit more kind of emotional kind of palette to it. My remix for Brian Kage just came out on Michigander Records from
I
from
listened to that, and that was
Detroit.
phenomenal, man. I was actually thinking about buying the vinyl for that one.
Oh, nice.
That's A+. Yeah.
Uh, what else have we got coming out? Yeah, I've got another single coming out on "We Will Always Be a Love Song." It's a French label, it's a vinyl only label, where it's an original kind of work in a style of underground resistance timeline vibe, with remix from one of my colleagues, who I thought would do a great job, and they did a great job. So that's coming out on vinyl, and then more collabs in the pipeline. I don't know what else I'm doing. I might do some more sound design for Roland as well. I want to work on maybe a sound pack for the Juno 106 or one of these early synths. I still have fun with synthesizers, man. I'll never get bored of synths. That's the first thing that got me into this, was just when I was a teenager. My mother was a pianist, rest her soul, and she used to work for the BBC, and she used to get these synths. She used to borrow these synths from her work and bring them home and just leave them in the living room, and that's what got me started. So I had a Juno 60 when I was 9. I know it sounds very cheesy to say that, but I was lucky to have a mother that had synths in the house and let me use them. But I was lucky to know what I wanted to do since I was a kid. So a lot of kids don't have that. I would say to kids, just keep trying things out until you find the one that clicks. I mean, music might not be for you, but you have to try it first. The tools are there to try it. It's even easier to write music now. But I definitely think to all the kids that are trying to find their passion, there's so much things to do out there. And, I definitely think if you've not done music before, try it and see if you like it, because we need more Apex Twins in the world, etc. We need more kind of like geniuses to push the sound forward. There's not enough Mavericks out there anymore. We need some more Mavericks.
I think there's going to be space for that in the future. I think the landscape's changing, and I think people are just going to be wanting more and more experimentation, more live stuff.
We need more nerds. The nerds need to come back.
Yeah. Well, we have nerds, but not like, they're a different kind of nerd now.
Yeah, the nerds. We need to bring back the nerds, because the nerds, when they made the great music, God knows what we have now on the stage. Whatever it is, I don't like it. Yeah, we need to bring music back to the forefront. It's like Frankie Knuckles said, the minute you think you're bigger than the music, it's over. I'm a big fan of that quote. But alcohol definitely doesn't help with the creative process at all. I don't think any drugs, any narcotics, any alcohol, anything, stimulants helps with the creative process. I think you have to be in a pure state of mind to write music. I've always been that way of thought. A lot of people say, well, what about dub reggae? But you're right, maybe with that. But I think, yeah, music and drugs, uh, interesting combination, but not in the artistic point of view, not in the creation of music, I guess. A lot of people will disagree with me on that one, but yeah.
I've had my fair share of a good night, but it's also usually you're DJing or you're spectating. You're not sitting in the studio. If you
Yeah, DJing's fine. You can get drunk and I mean, I don't know if I could be in a club sober. That's a good point. I'm not sure I could handle it. I know some friends of mine that stopped drinking and go to, like, a couple of DJ friends. I won't mention their names, but they went sober, and I could just see them in the club standing on the wall with this frozen smile on their face, trying to get through it all. And then, like, yeah, it must be tough to be in that kind of situation where you're surrounded by everyone who's drunk or high, and you're like straight. I know a lot of friends can't handle that. I don't think I can handle that situation. But I mean, I'm not a huge drinker, but I do like a couple of beers if I'm DJing. But as I say, in the studio, I don't think I could. I don't drink, or yeah, at home, I'm not really a kind of like drinker at home. I'm a social drinker, as they say.
are you
But
taking like any
yeah,
caffeine or
I've got
anything to get your juices going
Oh,
mentally?
bro, I have like 2 liters a day. I drink 2 liters of coffee a day, especially now my meds have run out. My ADHD meds have run out. So I'm doubling my caffeine intake. So I'm like, yeah, I'm running around like a goddamn squirrel. It's crazy. But the thing is with coffee, it makes me focus a bit better. It kind of makes me sleepy as well. So I get this kind of huge rush for like 3 hours, and then kind of tapers off. And then I have another coffee that keeps me going. Whereas ADHD meds keeps me going 6 hours straight on the one thing. The thing is with ADHD, you have all these screens in real life and in your brain as well. And the thing about these meds, they kind of mute all the other screens, and then you have this voice in the back of your mind that says, "Do this. This is the one thing you need to do." And if you feel yourself get distracted, it stops you from doing that, and it just drags you back into the task number one. So task number one for me should be writing music. So I do actually need that aid, that mental aid for me to focus on finishing or writing. But when it happens, it's like a flurry of creativity. I can do a lot of work in a short space of time when I'm in that hyper focus mode. So I do see ADHD as a superpower. You just need to learn how to hone it, to kind of like sharpen the skill. But I think a lot of artists suffer from ADHD. I don't know if it's late onset ADHD, but I definitely didn't have this when I was younger. So this has happened maybe over the usage of internet in the last 15 years, and the kind of like computer culture, I guess, being more online, or more connected with screens. It's definitely accelerated maybe my onset of ADHD. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's I have a lot of all my friends have it, or they say they have it. I don't know if they've been diagnosed, but it's definitely an artistic thing. A lot of artists have this. Oh, artists live in their own universe. Who cares? They're all fine. We have our own moral universe. We're all fucking nuts. I like the crazy peoples. I like people with stories. I like, I don't like regular folk. I like kind of weirdos, freaks, and people with stories. Broken people. I love all that shit. That's my gang.
That's good, man. Everyone needs that acceptance, I think, at some point, especially in a net culture now where everyone's trying to be perfect all the time.
Yeah, I hate that super perfect, fucking narcissistic, I'm better than everyone else attitude. I hate that shit. Good thing is about playing in front of crowds for 30 years, I can see everyone's different personality trait within 2 minutes of meeting them. So I know what people's motives are, whatever. This business is a really kind of like shark infested business. And sometimes I lose my edge and I one slips through the net. But yeah, you can usually tell what people are about, by meeting them or they reveal themselves. Ego is always, always rears its ugly head now and then. But I think we all need some kind of ego. You need to have some kind of like, self affirmation. But as long as it doesn't turn into something self destructive or destructive of other people. But it's a tough battle, the old ego.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I guess is a good way to put it.
You need to like your own shit. And it's nice to like your own shit. Come on, it's good if you do. If you write something good, it's okay to feel good about it. You know, but yeah, it's just you got to be careful with that. It's a tough beast to control, the ego. But I've watched a lot of family members, one in particular that had it really bad, and I just grew up thinking I didn't want to be like that.
Hmm.
But you get to spot it. You get to spot it when you've grown up with that kind of thing. That's why I know what it's like being around artists. I'm quite good at dealing with artists or people with that kind of like confidence. Well, a lot of my clients and students have lack of self confidence, so I also see that too. So you need to build people up in that respect. You need to fill the hole. I even know some established artists are they have that kind of imposter syndrome, which is another disease I hate. I've had that as well, imposter syndrome. You're like, wait a minute, am I shit? Like when you see all this other stuff happening and then you start questioning your own art. So yeah, it's a kind of like maybe it's a little bit of paranoia or your brain playing tricks on you. But yeah, your art is worth something. It needs to be get out there. It's not doing anything stuck in your head or not being put out there. Just make the whole process of making art is very cathartic and therapeutic in itself. I'm a big fan of saying fuck what anyone else thinks about your stuff. Never that's never had any issue with me at all. I mean, never been a competitive person or a careerist, whatever. That's probably to my detriment financially, but as long as I'm happy with myself, that's the main thing. I'm not harming anyone else either by doing something, to further my career. So yeah, I'm lucky I'm still here. I mean, all of my peers are dropping off like flies. So hopefully I'll still be around for a few more years. Let's see. But it just seems that there's a current climate of people in my age group or producers and artists that seem to be dropping off prematurely. So I've learned to kind of carpe diem a lot more these days. So like, yeah, just hang out with friends more, take that holiday, spend some more time with your family and say yes to a lot of things because you never know if you're going to make it, the next day. You never know. Every day's a fucking miracle, I say.
No, it is, man. It really is. And
Yeah.
I think in this music scene, you're right. I think right now a lot of the artists that you would hope would stick around are kind of falling off, and it also seems like it's just I see this a lot like in like when I look up older like drum and bass records that I love from like Moving Shadow or something. I'm like, this guy put out like 2 records and he was gone. He was probably he probably toured
Where
for
is
like
he now? I always wonder, where are they now, man? I'm like, yeah, they're like my age or whatever. But like I meet some of my heroes like Dan Duncan. He was an amazing drum. He was intense on Moving Shadow. Was it Moving Shadow or whatever? Intense. Though was the other label he was on. Big human drum and bass producer. Now he's producing techno or for years under the Pig and Dan name, and now we're friends. And now
mm,
we're with this company. We're working together in this company. So I think the stars are aligning. Good people gravitate to good people. You know,
Yeah.
there's a few fucking shysters on the way, but you gravitate, to your tribe. What does it say? If you stick to your vibe, you find your tribe. Yeah, I'm a big follower of that for sure. So that's what building this community is. It's a tiny community I have, but it just works. It's like the old days, when we used to be in like villages of 150 people. Everyone knew their name, and everyone had the same kids. That's the vibe I like. I like that kind of small knit community vibe.
Well, also, this music was created in a space very similar to that in Detroit and Chicago. It was a handful of people all hanging out all the
Yeah.
time, man.
Yeah, I'm just an anti-commercial, anti-mainstream guy. I mean, I'm just if it's popular, then it's not good. I mean, I don't know if it's popular, can it still be good? That's a good question. I'm not sure. Certain things, yeah, but I don't with music. It's kind of like, yeah, it seems to dilute a lot the bigger the crowds. So maybe we're not meant for the big crowds, but as long as I'm happy and music touches me the way it should do, then I'm cool with that. But yeah, as far as fame, money, success, these are alien things to me. I'm more about personal happiness. That's what I'm all about.
Awesome, man. I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk again soon, man.
All right, bro. Take care. I'll speak to you soon, Ray.
Awesome. That was our first interview with Funk Devoid Lars Sandberg, the one and only. We touched on basically every question I had in a roundabout order. But I really hope you guys enjoyed listening to this, and I hope to hear from y'all soon.